Originally, I thought that 2025 was going to be the year of the daily trainer, but then brand after brand has dropped absolutely insane super shoe. So today we're comparing two of those crazy super shoes that have released so far, the Adidas Adizero Adios Pro Evo 2 and the Puma Fast-R Nitro Elite 3. What's up everybody, I'm Eric McIntyre, aka Rad Dad Bod, and you're watching Rad Dad Bod TV, where we review running shoes. Today, like I said, we're doing a crazy comparison of the Pro Evo 2 and the R3, but if it's your first time watching one of my videos, you may notice some timestamps below. Feel free to jump around to the various parts of the review, but if you do so, I would sure appreciate if you come back and watch the full thing when you get a sec. I put a lot of time and effort into these videos. And if you've been a viewer for a while, but you haven't yet hit that subscribe button, please consider doing so today and turning on notifications so you get notified every time I drop a new video, which is typically Monday through Friday. Now, before I dive into any specifics, some quick disclaimers and disclosures, which are that I actually paid for both of these shoes with my own money. That being said, I have received shoes from Puma before, and I have talked to Adidas despite not having received anything to this point in time. That being said, anytime I do receive shoes from a brand for the purpose of review, I'm not paid, I'm not given talk tracks, talking points, no one watches the videos beforehand, I'm not obligated to include shoes in any specific content, and all thoughts are entirely my own. With that out of the way, let's talk about the intended use of these two shoes. So both these shoes kind of have made waves in their own way. The Pro Evo 2 is really maybe outshined by its predecessor, the Pro Evo 1 last year, which came on the scene, broke records, and absolutely shattered what we thought was possible from a weight perspective of a super shoe. Meanwhile, the R3 this year launched kind of to a surprise with a study that was paid for by Puma, which claimed that it increased the running economy of runners by 3% more than the Pro Evo 1 and the Nike Alpha Fly. So not just showing that it was improving running economy overall, but when compared to other super shoes. Now, Puma did pay for the study, but it was done by, I believe, the exercise scientists or physiologists who did the original Vaporfly 4% study. So they should have been an unbiased party. Again, though, take it with a grain of salt, as Puma did pay for the study. As such, both of these shoes are designed for the marathon, designed to go crazy fast, and designed to be crazy light. As such, that's how we're going to be talking about them today. Now, from a price perspective, there's a pretty big discrepancy despite them both being pretty crazy. The Pro Evo 2 comes in at $500, and then the Fast R3 comes in at $300. Both are pretty extreme. Both are also pretty extreme when it comes to performance. Speaking of more extremes, from a specs perspective, the Pro Evo 2 comes in at 4.6 ounces and 130 grams. I do believe it still maintains its spot as by far the lightest super trainer, or super shoe, I should say, on the market. Meanwhile, the R3 comes in at 6 ounces and 170 grams, which still makes it absolutely crazy light when compared to the rest of the field. Then from a stack perspective, in the Pro Evo 2, you've got 39 in the heel, 36 in the forefoot for a 3mm drop. And in the R3, you have 39 in the heel, 31 in the forefoot for an 8mm drop. So really kind of taking the opposite direction. You have a slightly higher drop here versus a very low to minimal drop over here. From a fit perspective, both of them do fit a little bit awkward, if I'm being honest. The Pro Evo 2 is narrow throughout and has a super low volume toe box. I will say that it is probably true to size, but maybe a tiny bit short. So you could probably get away with half sizing up in this shoe, but overall it's just very low volume. Meanwhile, with the R3, it also fits fairly narrow. I would say that it fits actually a little wider than a lot of the Pumas that I've tried, because Puma, I think I would say that they are the narrowest fitting brand that I've tried, at least in my opinion. The R3 though, it has a more standard toe box and more standard heel than maybe some others, but then it does have a narrow overall midfoot. Now, moving to the uppers, this is where the two shoes separate themselves the most for me, if I'm being honest. With the Pro Evo 2, what we have is what's called an ultralight mesh. It's super crazy lightweight. It's super thin overall. There's not a whole lot of reinforcement other than there in kind of the heel counter, and really like minimal to any cushioning there in the heel. The tongue, as you can see, is crazy super thin, and it is not gusseted. It just has the laces run through it at one point, and so the tongue bunches up a ton, and the upper is not the most comfortable. The other thing I have kind of beef with is where the laces end. So they don't come up further on the shoe. They end like really far forward. And then there's a super short tongue, so even if you wanted to use the last eyelet or try and do a runner's knot, it's gonna maybe cut into your foot a little bit there. And so I haven't had lockdown issues with it, but I really would like to feel a little bit more secure in the shoe, especially with the upper being as kind of flimsy as it is. They really optimize for weight, and you can tell, but there's just like a couple like little things that I don't feel like would have added that much weight that could have made the upper a lot better. Another thing to note is some people really have issues with like rubbing on the Achilles with this kind of tab heel. I haven't had any issues with Adidas models, specifically the like Adios Pro lines. Hasn't given me any trouble, but it's worth noting that that is something that can cause some irritation. Honestly, I was like okay with this upper because it, you know, like when you're sacrificing that much weight, I understand like something has to give and structure is probably what that is. But then I tried the R3. The R3 has an ultra weave engineered mesh with some power tape overlays in specific areas to add a little bit more structure. You actually get a fairly structured heel, which is really, really nice. And it gives kind of some security there where your heel feels really, really locked down, where in the, you know, Pro Evo 2, you don't get that feeling. Similarly, you have that like crazy paper thin tongue, so kind of the same overall thing, and it does kind of bunch up a little bit. However, they have it run through, they have the laces run through the tongue in 3 different points, so once in the middle and then one on each side, which does keep the tongue in place a little bit better. So, you know, it's a little bit of a struggle when you first put it on to make sure it lays flat, but once you have it laying flat, it feels really, really nice. And then the laces themselves are really, really high quality. You get that nice, like, high premium lace, which to me makes a massive difference in how it feels, right? Now, are they adding additional weight to give you that cushion, to give you that structure, kind of those power tape overlays there along the eyelets and everything, and then the toe box? Like, absolutely, that adds extra weight. Is it adding so much extra weight, though, that it bogs down the shoe? You know, no, I think the ideal is probably somewhere in between these two, but I really genuinely enjoy the upper of the R3. You know, you get really, really good lockdown. It feels comfortable. It feels like an extension of your foot versus the, you know, Pro Evo 2, it just feels kind of awkward on foot, really. Now, moving to the midsole, some crazy stuff kind of happens here. So with the, you know, R3, you have that Nitro Elite foam, and in this shoe, it is the ATPU version. And then you have a carbon fiber plate that runs down through the shoe, and then it actually extends past the toe there to give you like a little bit of almost like a catapult or a launch pad feeling there. On the Pro Evo 2, you have the Light Strike Pro Evo, which is the supercritical TPE, but it is an uncompressed, so it's a laser cut from large sheets as opposed to compression molded, which makes it very, very lightweight, very, very airy. You also have carbon fiber rods that run through the shoes that kind of match the orientation of your toes running through the shoe. Now, both of these shoes are probably equally as fast. However, the overall sensation between the two is drastically different. From a stability standpoint, neither of them is inherently stable, but both of them are more stable than you would probably expect, right? Not to the point that overpronators would really, really, you know, love the shoes, but to the point where if you are a heel striker and you're concerned with these two shoes, I don't think you need to be as concerned as you really are. You know, so long as you're not like crazy overstriding and have a super exaggerated heel strike, I actually think these will be accommodating for most foot strikes. The other thing is I have slight overpronation in my right foot. Neither of these gave me issues at all. I felt very, very secure and stable in both. So, you know, where they differ the most is that the overall sensation underfoot of the Pro Evo 2 is more of like a bouncy, the foam feels like almost like running on a sponge. It's really interesting, like a foam pad in the pool. It feels kind of like running on that, like running on a foam pad where it like almost like thumps, you get like the boom, right? But it's so crazy lightweight. It feels like you're not moving super fast. And then when you get going and you look at your watch, or, you know, you realize how fast you're actually going, like the paces just feel effortless, right? Your legs just move so light and so free. It really is a very unique sensation that I haven't been able to find in another shoe, right? It takes so much pressure off of the legs. Meanwhile, the R3 is also a very unique sensation where I feel like I'm very smooth. It's almost like I'm gliding across the ground, and I feel fast in the shoe, right? So I don't necessarily feel fast in the Pro 2, I am fast in it, but I feel very fast in the R3, and I think that comes down to, yes, the responsiveness of the foam, yes, the aggressive nature of the midsole, but really like that carbon fiber plate sticking out past the edge of the shoe, I think makes a massive difference. And like, maybe it's placebo, but I feel like it just flings me forward. And so I feel crazy fast in this shoe. I don't necessarily feel as crazy fast in the Pro Evo 2, but I am fast in both of these shoes. So it's hard for me to like compare those sensations because they are very unique, but more bouncy, more snappy, more smooth maybe, and both crazy, crazy fast. Moving to the outsoles, both shoes have some pretty crazy outsoles overall. So you have that liquid poured rubber in the Pro Evo 2, and then you have a new kind of traction pattern in the shoe. I worry a ton about the durability of that traction there because through a few runs, it's already starting to kind of eat away. And I know that this is like a single use marathon optimized shoe, so you really probably only get like 50 good miles out of it. But I would hope at the very least the outsole would hold up. Meanwhile, on the R3, you have that Puma grip in a thinner overall compound than on some previous models, but it really, really grips the ground really, really well as well. Both of these are top tier overall outsoles that I would be confident in really any weather for a marathon or other race. Now, from a durability perspective, I fully expect the Puma grip to last longer, but and really like across the board, I expect the R3 to last longer. So that's maybe a good transition to like my pick. You know, I ran my marathon last year in the Pro Evo 1 and it was phenomenal. Like I felt light in the shoe. Paces felt effortless. Like the traction did phenomenal despite a lot of rain during that race. Like it was a really good overall shoe and I'm glad I wore it. And so like I kind of lean towards like if I was going to run a marathon tomorrow, I kind of lean towards the Pro Evo 2. But you know, if I had to just purchase one, then I might purchase the R3 just because it's $200 cheaper and it is still phenomenal. Like just based off of price alone, I think I would choose the R3 as my super shoe of the year right now. I can't justify putting a $500 shoe in my rankings. I just can't do it. Is it phenomenal? Would I wear it for a marathon tomorrow? Absolutely. I would have a really hard time deciding which one of these I should race in for a marathon if I was going to run one tomorrow, because they're both that good. I might lean towards the Pro 2 just because, you know, for the marathon distance, you want to stay as relaxed as possible for as long as possible. And I really feel like this shoe does a phenomenal job at doing that. Versus, like I said, I feel crazy fast in the R3. Like for my next 5K time trial, I'm probably wearing the R3. It feels fast. It feels nimble. There's not a lot of shoes that kind of compare it to it in that aspect. So, you know, I don't think you can go wrong either way. I don't think that one is necessarily better than the other. But just based off of that price tag, I have to go R3 for kind of my pick generally. So, you know, just some final thoughts. Mind-blowing. Both of these shoes are absolutely mind-blowing. Like I said, I thought I was coming into 2025 with it being like the year of the daily trainer. The super shoe technology has trickled down, and it has. Like you just look up here, you know, these 3-4 trainers, you know, daily trainers, Evo SL, Neo Zen, Rebel V5, Aeroglide 3, all 4 of those would be in contention for top trainer of the year last year. Like they're all phenomenal. And then you have just these crazy, crazy super shoes coming out as well. The Adios Pro 4 is phenomenal. I really like the Hyperion Elite 4 PB, the Cielo X1 2.0. I always forget the name. Phenomenal overall as well. The Endorphin Elite 2 is crazy. It's just maybe not for me, but it's wild, right? There's just so much going on in the running shoe world. It's just a really exciting time to be a running shoe reviewer, honestly. Now, one thing I will say, Adidas, you gotta fix the price point, because if you've got shoes like this coming in at $300, we've got the Metaspeed Ray coming in, I think in June or July, which is also, I can't remember the weight, but it's competitive with these two. Like, it was one thing when there was only one shoe with an insane weight. Sure, like $500 was still insane, but I get it, I guess, right? Now that the rest of the market is throwing out shoes with those insane specs, I just don't think, you know, you can justify, like when you look at this, like how good the R3 is for $300 compared to, yes, the Pro Evo 2 is phenomenal, but for $500, right? There's not a $200 difference here anymore, where maybe last year there was like a $200, $250 difference between the next best racing shoe, in my opinion. So anyway, if you stuck around this far, I sure appreciate you. Please take a second, leave a note in the comments. Let me know what you enjoyed. Let me know what I could be doing better, or let me know if there's any other comparisons that you'd like to see. And if you've been watching this far and you still haven't hit that subscribe button, please consider doing so and turning on those notifications so you get notified every time I drop a new video. And as always, I'm going to finish out with a question, which is, which super shoe, which crazy light super shoe are you most excited to try in 2025? The Pro Evo 2, the R3, or the Metaspeed Ray? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks everybody.